There is something inherently wrong about a $300 Italian stiletto dangling from a connection of Oregon white oak that is 300 years old. I stopped the sander, the sudden silence of the workshop ringing in my ears, and looked out the window. My property line ends where the ancient root system of the oak begins, a massive, gnarled giant that predates the Homeowners Association by at least 2 centuries. Usually the view is just squirrels and falling leaves. Today it was a pair of legs. Excellent legs encased in a black pencil skirt that was currently fighting a losing battle with gravity and bark. I wiped the sawdust from my hands onto my jeans, smelling the sharp, sweet scent of the freshly cut cedar I'd been milling. I didn't know my neighbor well. I knew she drove a silver Audi that always arrived home at 9:00 p.m. I knew her lawn was manicured by a service not her, and I knew her name was Sophia, because I'd seen it on the stacks of Amazon packages that occasionally landed on my porch by mistake. I walked out the back door, the late afternoon sun cutting through the canopy. The air was cooling, that specific crispness that hits the Pacific Northwest in late September. "You know," I said, leaning my shoulder against the trunk of the tree, keeping my voice low so I wouldn't startle her. "The ladder was invented in the Neolithic era. It's a pretty reliable technology." A gasp from above. Leaves rustled violently. A face appeared through the foliage, pale framed by dark hair that had clearly started the day in a severe bun, but was now unraveling in chaotic strands. Her eyes were wide, panicked, and humiliated. "I don't own a ladder," she hissed. Her voice was tight, the kind of tone used by people accustomed to giving orders in boardrooms not being stuck 12 feet in the air. "And I don't need an audience." "You need gravity, though," I observed. "And right now, gravity is plotting against you." "I'm fine. I'm just assessing the structural integrity of a branch that's about 2 inches thick." I pointed upward. "You're a lawyer, right? Liability is your thing. If you fall, you break an ankle. If you fall on my fence, you break the fence. I built that fence. I'd be upset." She glared at me, clutching the rough bark. Her knuckles were white. "The HOA sent a notice. Mrs. Gable claims this limb is a visual nuisance and blocking the communal view corridor. I came up to cut it." I looked at her hand. She was holding a pair of kitchen shears. Not pruning shears. Poultry shears. With scissors. They are high-quality shears. She defended, though her voice wobbled. The branch beneath her shifted. She gasped, freezing. "Okay," I said, stepping away from the trunk and moving directly under her. I planted my feet, bending my knees slightly to absorb the weight. I held my arms up. "Drop the scissors." "What?" "Drop them. You're going to stab yourself." She hesitated, then let them fall. They landed in the grass with a dull thud. "Now," I said, looking up into her eyes. Her pupils were blown wide, the whites flashing at the corners. She drew in air in quick, shallow pulls. Fingers clamped to the bark so hard her knuckles went pale. The tough glare she'd been wearing kept slipping, replaced by the honest fear of the drop beneath her. "I want you to slide off that branch. I'm going to catch you." "I am not jumping," she said, her voice rising in pitch. "I am a senior partner at—" "You are a woman stuck in a tree, Sophia. And I'm a guy who lifts oak beams for a living. I've got you. Trust the physics." She looked down at me. I kept my face steady, no mocking, just calm calculation. I saw her calculate the odds, her eyes darting from the ground to my shoulders. She took a breath that rattled in her chest. "If you drop me," she warned, "I will sue you for everything you own." "I own a lot of sawdust. Come on." She scooted forward, her skirt hitching, her dignity crumbling. She closed her eyes and let go. It wasn't a graceful fall. She didn't float. She plummeted. But I was ready. I caught her impact against my chest, my arms locking instantly around her waist and thighs. The momentum staggered me back one step, my boots digging into the turf, but I didn't go down. For a second, the world stopped. She was heavy in my arms, solid and warm. I could smell her perfume, something expensive and floral, clashing with the earthy smell of the tree bark on her skin. Her face was buried in my neck, her breathing ragged and hot against my collarbone. I felt her heart hammering against my chest, a frantic bird beat. I didn't let go immediately. I waited until I felt her muscles unclench. "I got you," I said, my voice rumbling against her ear. She pulled back her hands, still gripping my biceps for stability. Her eyes were dark, dilated, searching my face. There was a flush creeping up her neck that had nothing to do with the exertion. "You caught me?" she whispered, sounding surprised. "I told you I would." She blinked, and the corporate mask slammed back into place. She scrambled out of my arms, smoothing her skirt, checking her hair. She picked up one shoe from the grass and shoved her foot into it. "Thank you," she said stiffly. That was unnecessary, but appreciated. "The notice," I said, ignoring her attempt to regain distance. "Mrs. Gable sent it today." Sophia sighed, shoulders slumping. The fight drained out of her. "She says I have 48 hours to remove the offending limb, or she'll hire a contractor and bill me triple. I didn't have time to call anyone. I thought I could just snip it. With chicken scissors. It seemed smaller from the ground." I looked up at the tree. It was a magnificent white oak. The limb in question was perfectly healthy, arching gracefully toward the street. It wasn't dangerous. It was just untamed. "Don't touch it," I said. "I have to. She'll fine me $5,000. I mean, don't you touch it. You're a danger to yourself and the poultry shears." I walked over to the fence, assessing the angle. "I'll handle it." "Excuse me, you're a..." She gestured vaguely at my dusty t-shirt. "Maverick. And yes, I'm a carpenter. But I know trees. Give me the notice. I'll talk to Gable." "Mrs. Gable eats souls for breakfast, Maverick. You don't just talk to her." "I'll handle it," I repeated. I turned back to her. She looked lost, standing there in the middle of her perfect lawn, a singular point of chaos in a controlled world. "Go inside. Take a shower. You have bark in your hair." She reached up, touching her messy bun, and for a second she looked incredibly young, stripped of the armor. "Okay," she said softly. The next morning, I was in my driveway loading the truck when Sophia came out. She looked like a different person. Sharp navy suit hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, briefcase in hand. The armor was back. She marched over to me holding a check. "For your trouble," she said, thrusting it toward me. "And for the consultation." I looked at the check. $500. "I didn't do anything yet," I said, leaning against the bed of my truck. "You caught me, and you offered to help. I prefer to keep things clear. A retainer, if you will." I looked at her hands. Manicured fingers pinched the check so hard the paper bowed in the middle. A faint tremor ran through her wrist. She pushed it forward again when I didn't take it, jaw-set eyes fixed on the ink like numbers could keep the world tidy. When I lifted my hands in refusal, her grip went rigid, knuckles whitening as if I'd just pulled away the only railing she trusted. "Sophia," I said gently, "I'm not your employee, I'm your neighbor." "I know, but I don't want your money." I took the check from her fingers, tore it in half, and handed the pieces back to her. "Put your wallet away." She stared at the torn paper, flustered. "Then why are you helping me?" "Men don't just help." We do, I said, when we see someone attacking a hardwood tree with kitchen utensils. She narrowed her eyes. I don't need rescuing. I know. You look very capable. I let my eyes sweep over her suit, acknowledging the power she projected. But you're busy. I'm not. I have a gap between custom builds. Let me look at the tree properly. I'll check the property line survey. Gable can't enforce a trim if the tree is grandfathered in. You know property law. I know where lines are drawn, I said. Go to work. I've got this. She hesitated, biting her lip. The meeting is Thursday night. The HOA board meeting. She's going to bring it up then. I'll be there. Oh, you don't have to. Thursday, I said, turning back to my truck. 7:00 p.m., Community Center. She stood there for a moment longer, watching me. I could feel her gaze on my back, analyzing, assessing. Then I heard the click of her heels retreating to the Audi. I spent the next 2 days doing what I do best, measuring, checking, and building. I went to the county clerk's office. I pulled the original plat maps for our subdivision. I found the survey markers on Sophia's lot, buried under 3 inches of decorative mulch. I ran a string line. The tree wasn't just on her property. It was the property. The marker was actually embedded in the root flare. On Wednesday afternoon, I saw Mrs. Gable walking her poodle. She stopped in front of Sophia's house, notepad in hand, frowning at the branch. I walked out to the curb. I didn't yell. I didn't posture. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for her to notice me. Mr. Jones. She sniffed. Your grass is getting long. Mrs. Gable. The oak tree is protected under County Ordinance 14B regarding heritage timber on residential lots. She blinked. It's a nuisance. It drops acorns on the sidewalk. It's 300 years old. It was dropping acorns before the sidewalk existed. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to that pitch that makes people lean in. If you force a cut and the tree develops rot, the HOA is liable for the replacement value. A mature white oak of this size valuation is around $60,000, plus legal fees. Her pen hovered over her notepad. That's ridiculous. Is it Sophia Cooper as a litigator, Mrs. Gable? Do you really want to give her a reason to practice at home? Mrs. Gable paled slightly. She snapped her notebook shut. We'll discuss it at the meeting. When Sophia came home that night, it was late. 10:00 p.m. Her porch light was off. I watched from my kitchen window as she fumbled with her keys, dropping them twice. She looked exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tired that sleep doesn't fix. I walked out the back door, crossed the lawn, and hopped the low fence. I picked up her keys from the mat before she could bend down again. She jumped, hand flying to her chest. Maverick. God. Lights out, I said, unlocking the door for her. Bulb probably blue. I'll put it on the list, she murmured, leaning against the doorframe. She looked small. I have a list. It has 400 things on it. Go inside, Sophia. Did you see the tree? I saw it. I saw Gable too. And you need to sleep. I handed her the keys. Our fingers brushed. Her skin was cold, mine was warm. She didn't pull away instantly. She looked at my hand, rough and calloused against her smooth palm. Why are you doing this? She asked again softly. Because you're tired, I said. And I'm not. The Thursday meeting was a firing squad. The community center basement smelled of stale coffee and judgment. Mrs. Gable sat at the head of the plastic table like a judge at a sentencing hearing. Sophia sat next to me, rigid, her spine not touching the back of the chair. She had prepared a file. I could see the tabs. Legal precedents. HOA bylaws, section 4.3. She was ready to go to war. Item 4, Mrs. Gable announced. The Cooper nuisance tree. Sophia inhaled sharply, ready to stand up. I put a hand on her forearm. Just a touch. Gentle grounding. "Let me," I murmured. She looked at me startled. She was used to being the shield for everyone else. She wasn't used to someone being the shield for her. I stood up. I didn't use legal jargon. I didn't threaten. I placed a large, rolled-up sheet of paper on the table. "This is the structural assessment of the limb in question," I said. "I went up there yesterday with a harness. The wood is solid. No rot, no insect damage. The droop," Mrs. Gable noticed, "is actually the tree self-correcting for wind load. If you cut it, you unbalance the canopy. The next storm we get, the whole tree comes down on Mrs. Gable's garage." Silence. Mrs. Gable's eyes widened. "I also installed a dynamic cable brace today," I added. "It's invisible from the street. It supports the weight so it won't sag further. It's fixed, safely, professionally. No permit needed." I looked around the table. "Any other business?" There was none. When we got outside, the air was cool and sweet. Sophia walked beside me to the parking lot, her heels clicking on the asphalt. She stopped at her car and turned to me. "You climbed the tree?" "Yeah." "You cabled it?" "Yeah." "When?" "While you were at work." She stared at me, shaking her head. I had a whole speech prepared. I was going to threaten an injunction. "I know. But sometimes you don't need a lawsuit. You just need a cable." She let out a breath, a long, shuddering sound. Her shoulders dropped 3 inches. "I don't know how to thank you." "Dinner," I said. She froze. "Excuse me. Dinner. Saturday, my place. I make a decent steak." I don't date neighbors. It's messy." "We're not dating," I lied. "We're celebrating the victory of arboriculture over bureaucracy." A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, the first real one I'd seen. "Okay. For the tree." Friday brought a rare gift. Sun. I was in the yard with a tape measure, checking the tension on the cable I'd installed, when movement in the canopy caught my eye. Sophia was on the oak again, not trapped this time, not panicked. She'd found a low branch that angled out over the lawn, maybe 7 feet up. She sat on it like she belonged there, one hand braced on the bark, white tank top, black skirt, bare legs in the last warm light. Her hair was down soft around her face. I walked closer, stopping under the branch. Gray t-shirt, sawdust still on my forearms. "You realize you're developing a pattern," I said. She tipped her chin, smiling like she'd been waiting for me. "You realize you're developing a rescue complex. I'm only here because I value heritage timber," I said. "Liar." She shifted, testing the branch with a deliberate little bounce. My hand lifted automatically. Not grabbing, just ready. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to my face. A small breath left her, half laughter, half nerves. I held my voice steady. "Jump, I'll catch you." Sophia's smile softened into something quieter. "Maybe falling for you is not bad." She didn't jump. She slid forward, careful, until she was dangling by her hands. Then she looked at me, really looked like she was deciding to trust a thing that couldn't be written into a contract. She nodded once. I stepped in. She let go. This time I caught her without the impact, arms locking around her waist as her feet found my thighs. Her hands landed on my shoulders, gripping hard for 1 second, then loosening when she realized I was solid. She didn't pull away. She stayed close, breath warm against my collarbone. "Still got you," I murmured. I noticed she said, voice low. She leaned back just enough to meet my eyes, then gave a tiny, unmistakable permission with the tilt of her chin. I didn't kiss her. Not yet. I just set her on her feet and let my hand stay at her waist, 1 extra beat, firm, protective, and then gone. Her gaze tracked it like she felt the absence. Saturday, she said, clearing her throat armor, trying to reassemble. For the tree. For the tree, I agreed. Saturday came with rain, a relentless Oregon drizzle that turned the world gray. I spent the morning cleaning the house. Not just tidying cleaning. I wanted it to look like a sanctuary. I wanted her to walk in and feel the peace I tried to build into everything I made. She arrived at 7:00 sharp. She was wearing jeans. It was the first time I'd seen her in denim. It softened her. She held a bottle of wine like a peace offering. I didn't know what you drank, she said, stepping inside. Red is good. My house is mostly wood. Floors I refinished myself, cabinets. I built a dining table that is a slab of live-edge walnut. She ran her hand along the back of a chair as she walked through. You made this, she said, not a question. Yes. It's incredible. It feels alive. Wood is always moving, I said, pouring the wine. It breathes. It expands and contracts with the season. You have to build with that in mind. If you try to force it to be rigid, it cracks. She looked up at me, taking the glass. Is that a metaphor? Maybe. We ate at the kitchen island. The conversation started stiff work, weather, the HOA. But the wine helped. And the food. I saw her relax bite by bite. I wanted to be an architect, she admitted, twirling the stem of her glass. But my father said there was no money in art. So I went to law school. I build arguments now, not houses. Arguments are structures, I said. You have a foundation, you have load-bearing points. It's not the same. At the end of the day, I have a stack of paper. You have... She gestured to the room. You have this. Come to the shop, I said. Now, yeah. I led her out the back door under the covered walkway to the garage I'd converted. It smelled of sawdust and tung oil and rain. I flipped the lights on. On the workbench was a project I'd been fighting with. A restoration of a mid-century chair. This is my chaos, I said. She walked around the bench, touching the tools. She picked up a chisel, testing the weight. Careful, I said, moving behind her. It's sharp. I know. She didn't put it down. She turned the tool in her hand. My grandfather had tools like this. He never let me touch them. You can touch anything here, I said. The air in the shop changed. It got heavier, charged. She turned around. I was close. Too close. I could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. I could see the pulse in her throat. She looked up at me, her lips parting slightly. This was the moment. The jump moment. Sophia, I said, my voice rough. Maverick. I didn't kiss her. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But she was still skittish. She was still the woman who climbed a tree with scissors because she was afraid to ask for help. Instead, I reached out and took the chisel from her hand. I set it on the bench. Then I took her hand in mine. Her fingers were cold. I covered them with both of mine, warming them. You're freezing, I said. I'm always cold. I can fix that. I rubbed her hands, slow and steady. She watched my hands working on hers, her breathing hitching. It was intimate in a way that touching skin shouldn't be, but was. You fix everything, don't you? She whispered. I try. She leaned in, just an inch. An invitation. But then her phone buzzed in her pocket. The spell shattered. She pulled back, flustered, checking the screen. It's the firm, she said, her face closing down. I have to take this. I'm sorry. It's Saturday night, Sophia. It's a partner track case. I have to go. She fled. She literally ran out of the shop, back into the rain, back to her house where the lights were blazing and the work never ended. The shift happened 2 weeks later. I hadn't seen much of her. Just the silver Audi coming and going. She was avoiding me. Then the letter came. I found her sitting on her front porch steps when I got home. It was raining again. She wasn't wearing a coat. She was holding a piece of paper staring at the street. I parked the truck and walked over. "Sophia." She looked up. Her eyes were red. She wasn't crying, but she looked like she had been beaten. "They're auditing the property line," she said, her voice hollow. "Not the HOA, the city. Someone filed a complaint that my garage is 2 feet over the setback line. They want to tear it down." "What?" I sat down next to her on the wet concrete. "Who filed it?" "Anonymous. But it's Mrs. Gable. She couldn't get the tree, so she went for the garage." She crumpled the paper. "I can't fight this, Maverick. I'm drowning at work. I have a deposition in Seattle next week. I can't be here to meet the inspector. I can't do it." She put her head in her hands. "I'm going to sell. I'll just sell the house and move to a condo. It's easier." "No," I said. She looked at me. "I don't have a choice." "You have me." I reached out and took the crumpled paper from her hand. I smoothed it out on my knee. "The garage has been there since 1950, I said. "It's a pre-existing non-conforming structure. They can't touch it unless you alter the footprint." "I don't have the energy to prove that." "I do." "Why?" She snapped, standing up suddenly. "Why do you keep doing this? Why do you care about my garage? Why do you care about me?" I stood up too. We were face to face in the rain. "Because you're part of my view," I said. "And I like my view." She stared at me, rain dripping from her nose. "That is a terrible line. I'm a carpenter, not a poet." I stepped closer. I invaded her space. I blocked the wind with my body. I put my hands on her shoulders. They were shaking. "Give me the keys," I said. "Give me access to the basement. I need to find the original permits. I will handle the inspector. You go to Seattle. You win your case. I will save your house." "You can't promise that." "I promise." She looked at my chest, then up at my eyes. The fight went out of her. She leaned forward and rested her forehead against my chest. It was a surrender. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." I wrapped my arms around her. This time I didn't wait. I held her tight, anchoring her, and then I tilted her chin up. "May I?" I asked. She nodded. I kissed her. It tasted like rain and exhaustion and hope. It wasn't a polite kiss. It was a claim. I kissed her until she stopped shivering, until her hands gripped my shirt, until she made a sound in her throat that vibrated through me. "Go inside," I murmured against her lips. "I've got this." The next week was a blur. Sophia went to Seattle. I went to war with the city archives. I found the permits. They were on microfiche, misfiled under Cooper Street instead of Cooper Lane. It took me 3 days of digging. When the inspector arrived, I was waiting. I had the coffee ready. I had the blueprints laid out on a table I set up in the driveway. I walked him through the timeline, the code revisions, the grandfather clauses. I spoke his language. Structural load setbacks variance. He signed off on it in 20 minutes. I texted Sophia a photo of the signed form. "Garage is safe, tree is safe, come home." She didn't reply. She didn't come home that night, or the next. When she finally returned on Friday, she didn't come to see me. Her car was in the driveway, but the blinds were drawn. I gave her a day. Maybe she was tired. On Sunday, I knocked. She opened the door. She looked perfect. Too perfect. Hair done, makeup flawless, wearing a white silk blouse. She didn't invite me in. "You saved the garage," she said. "Thank you. I'll have my assistant send over a gift basket." "A gift basket?" I stepped into the doorway so she couldn't close it. "Sophia, what is this?" "This is reality," she said, her voice brittle. Seattle was clarifying. I was with partners who make 7 figures. I realized my life is there, in that world. And you are a carpenter maverick, a very nice carpenter. But we live in different universes. We live 10 feet apart. That's geography. I'm talking about... She gestured between us. This, I rely on you too much. It makes me weak. I can't be weak. She took a half step back, folding her arms tight across her ribs. Her gaze slid past my shoulder, anywhere but my face. "So this ends," she said, sharper now. "The tree, the garage, the neighborly hero act. I don't need it, and I don't need you." "You think accepting help makes you weak?" I asked quietly. "I think it makes you smart. And I think you're doing what you always do when something starts to matter. You reach for distance." "Please go," she whispered. "No." She blinked. "Excuse me." "No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm your neighbor. I'm right there. I'm going to be right there when you realize you're wrong." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. I'd made it that week. Maple with a simple hinge. "I found this in your basement when I was looking for the permits," I said. It was broken. I handed it to her. It was an old music box, the kind with a ballerina inside. The mechanism had been jammed for years. I'd fixed the gears, oiled the spring, polished the wood. She took it, her hands trembling. She opened the lid. The tinkling notes of Clair de Lune drifted out. The ballerina spun, her eyes filled with tears. "My mother gave me this." "I know. It says, 'To Sophia' on the bottom." I stepped back. "You don't have to be strong all the time, Sophia. You just have to be happy. I'll see you around." I walked away. I didn't look back. I knew she was watching. The Fall Festival. It was the neighborhood's big event. I was in charge of the bonfire. Mrs. Gable was prowling around looking for code violations. I was stacking wood when I felt a presence. Sophia was standing there. She wasn't wearing a suit. She was wearing a thick sweater and jeans. She looked comfortable. "I played the box," she said. "Every night for a week." I didn't stop stacking. "Does it sound okay?" "It sounds perfect." She stepped closer. I was wrong about being weak. I turned to face her. The firelight danced on her face. "I realized something," she said. "I spend all day fighting. I fight for clients, I fight for the firm, I fight Mrs. Gable. When I'm with you, I don't have to fight, I can just rest." "Rest is good," I said. "I don't want a gift basket," she said. "I want to help you with the fire." "You'll get soot on your sweater." "I don't care." She picked up a log. It was heavy. She struggled with it for a second, then adjusted her grip. She placed it on the pile. "Good placement," I noted. "I had a good teacher." Mrs. Gable marched over, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Jones, that stack is 3 inches above the regulation height for a recreational fire." I opened my mouth to cite the ordinance, but Sophia stepped in front of me. "Actually, Mrs. Gable," Sophia said, her voice clear and carrying across the crowd, "if you check Section 5.2, recreational fires for community events have a variance of 12 inches. And since Maverick is the designated safety officer for this event, his judgment supersedes the general guidelines." Mrs. Gable sputtered. "Well, I also." Sophia continued, slipping her hand into mine. She laced her fingers through mine, squeezing tight. "Maverick and I are hosting the cider station next. We'd love for you to come by. We made it together." She looked at me and smiled. It wasn't a corporate smile. It was the smile of the girl in the tree, but without the fear. "We?" Mrs. Gable asked, looking at our joined hands. "Yes," Sophia said firmly. "We." She turned to me, ignoring the stunned silence of the HOA president. "I'm ready to jump now," she whispered, so only I could hear. "I've already caught you," I said. I pulled her in, kissing her in front of the bonfire, in front of the neighbors, in front of the world. The fire crackled, the sparks drifting up toward the canopy of the oak tree that started it all, still standing, supported by my cable, shading the house where we would eventually build a life. Sophia didn't get saved by a speech. She got saved by receipts, permits, a cable, and an old oak, and a man who showed up without asking for anything back. Maverick didn't try to shrink her world. He just made room for her to breathe inside it. The green flags were simple. He kept his boundaries. He used competence instead of charm. He stood between her and the pressure when it mattered. And when the moment came, Sophia didn't hide. She took his hand in public and backed him in front of everyone. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more practical romances with strong men and loyal love. Thanks for watching.